Hi everyone. This week we're going to be looking at how the Minoan civilization explains Plato's story of the destruction of Atlantis. So, to begin, let's read what Plato actually said. So, after describing the war between the Atlanteans and the Greeks, he said this: "But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared into the depths of the sea, for which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way." So that's what Plato said. Now, how does this relate to the Minoan civilization? Well, it's quite well known that the island of Thera, which was the second most important island to the Minoans, in about 3,500 years ago, that erupted, because it's a volcanic island, that erupted in what was one of the most cataclysmic volcanic eruptions in human history. And what was the result of that eruption? What did it cause? Well, something that's often pointed out by people who believe that, like I do, that the Minoan civilization was the origin of the story of Atlantis, is that this volcanic eruption, because of the subsidence of the island, of parts of the island, this caused a tsunami that reached and hit the northern coast of Crete, which was the main island of the Minoans. And these people who believe in this theory often point out, or they often claim, that this tsunami hitting the northern coast of Crete perhaps led to Plato's description of the island of Atlantis disappearing beneath the depths of the sea. Now, frankly, I don't find that very convincing, and I think many other people don't as well, and that's one of the main reasons, I think, why many people don't believe in this theory, because the idea that a tsunami hitting the northern coast of Crete would have led to stories of the island of Atlantis disappearing beneath the depths of the sea, it's a bit far-fetched. I mean, a tsunami hitting the northern coast of Crete wouldn't have caused that much damage to the Minoan civilization. It would have damaged what was ever on the northern coast, but it's not like it swept across the whole island. So I don't think that's very convincing, and I think this is a shame that this is often used to supposedly support this Minoan theory, because there's actually something else, another element to this volcanic eruption, which is far, far more convincing, and I think people should focus on this a lot more. I don't think the tsunami hitting Crete really had anything, well, maybe it had a little to do with it when he mentions that there were earthquakes and floods. Maybe that was one of the floods he referred to, but I think the main idea of the island of Atlantis disappearing into the depths of the sea originated with something else, but still to do with this volcanic eruption. So let's focus on Thera, not Crete, but Thera, which, as we've seen over some of the previous videos, this composed a significant portion of Plato's description of Atlantis. So with Thera itself, what happened during this eruption? Well, one thing that happened is that huge sections of the island were literally blasted into the sea. And also, because of the magma chamber underneath the island emptying during the volcanic eruption, with all that material underneath the island being expelled into the atmosphere, that huge magma chamber underneath the island suddenly became basically an empty cavern, and so huge sections of the island literally collapsed into the sea, disappearing beneath the depths of the sea, just like Plato said. So, although not the entire island disappeared, huge sections of it did. So I think that could very easily have led to this maybe exaggerated claim that the whole island disappeared beneath the sea. So I think that is a far more convincing origin of Plato's description of Atlantis disappearing into the sea. But what about the second part of his description? Because he also said, for which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way. So, how does that relate to the eruption of Thera? Well, something that happened, and that happens on other occasions with other volcanic eruptions if they're large enough and if they're in the sea, is that with all that volcanic material being expelled into the atmosphere, of course it came down eventually, didn't it? So that formed enormous amounts of what's called pumice, which just basically layered the sea for miles all around the island of Thera, basically creating what could easily be viewed as a shoal of mud all around that area of the sea, making it very much impassable and impenetrable. So obviously that didn't continue until Plato's time. That would have gradually dissipated over the years and would have been long gone by Plato's time. But he describes it as if it's still there. So I think what explains this is simply that the story, as it was formed more or less, as Plato describes it there, in ancient Egypt, it was simply repeated without really regard for current conditions at the time the story was repeated. People just repeated it as it was. So this detail about the sea being impassable because of a shoal of mud, that was just repeated, and so when you read the story, it sounds as if it's still the case. So that's what I think explains that particular element of the story. But also, one final thing to note is that he writes at the beginning of this description, he says, but afterwards there occurred these violent earthquakes and floods. So he places the destruction of Atlantis after the war between Atlantis and the Greeks. Now the reason for this, actually just to explain what the issue is, this is actually the opposite of what happened with the Minoans. There was the destruction of Thera, or the eruption of Thera rather, in the late 1500s BCE, whereas their war with the Mycenaean Greeks occurred more towards 1450 BCE. So that happened about two or three generations after the eruption of Thera. So what I think explains this is simply the fact that someone repeating this story over the centuries wouldn't know the intricacies of the Minoan civilization and could easily have assumed that the destruction of this particular island among the Atlantean or Minoan Atlantean civilization must have meant the end of the civilization, because if they didn't understand the whole thing about there being different islands and the civilization continuing on one island even though it ended on another, they wouldn't really have understood that. So they would quite naturally place the destruction of this important island at the end of the story. I mean, frankly, that is logical if you weren't aware of the fact that it only wiped out the civilization there and not elsewhere. So I think that was simply switched around at some point along the line of transmission, simply because someone didn't understand that particular fact about the civilization continuing elsewhere. So, guys, that is what I think explains the story, or the particular elements of Plato's story of the Atlantis, of the Atlantean civilization, with its destruction, its falling beneath the seas, the shoal of mud. I think all of that is explained by the eruption of Thera in about 1500 BCE.